teaching today. So today is July 21st, my parents' anniversary. I'd have to get a calculator to figure out how many years that would have been. But they were married 62 years until my father passed away in 2009. And my parents were masters at pushing each other's buttons, and which spouses and partners often are. And I think it may be one of the reasons why we come together, because we need to learn how to heal what's inside of us. And those button-pushing things are opportunities for us to learn about ourselves and what we need to heal. So I grew up watching that button pushing, and that means I had buttons that got pushed, and quite a few buttons, and the buttons were big, like big easy buttons that they have at Staples. That are easy to see, bright and red, so you can see them, and you just go, poof, push that button. And I would go, and I'd go 0 to 60 and everything else. Because I learned 0 to 60 in our home. That's what I learned. Somebody pushes your buttons, you go off. You just have all kinds of stuff that you just vent and everything else. Because, when you're dealing with that, the other person who pushed that button deserves all that you're going to vent towards them. Because it's their fault, because they pushed the button. Yeah, But that's the illusion, that it's their fault. And I think it is good, because over the years, I did learn how to not get my buttons pushed, but I still had the buttons. And as long as you have the button, it can be pushed. And it is good when you get to the point where the button can be pushed, but you don't react violently, emotionally, dramatically, all kinds of words, in a way that's not loving, healthy, that stresses us out and whoever it is that you're venting at, whoever did the button pushing. And so at some point, I just got tired of having available buttons. The buttons did get smaller, and they were hard to find, but I still had them. And that's still a good thing, because progress is good. Progress is always good. We don't always have to be whatever perfect is, but you can at least minimize the button so that they're not so obvious to yourself or the other person, especially if you have somebody who loves pushing your buttons. And sometimes we are paired up, or we are in situations, work, colleagues, wherever you spend time, family. Oh my God, family. Yeah, my siblings, we knew how to push each other's buttons. There are sometimes it was just fun to push a button so I could watch my brother and my sister hit the ceiling. And it's a good day if I could make my brother or sister hit the ceiling. And sometimes we carry that into adulthood. We don't leave it, or we don't get rid of it after we are, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Some of us are still pushing buttons that we acquired in our young days. Some of us are still pushing those buttons and still enjoying it, or still suffering at the other end of it. Because I believe even if you think you're enjoying the pushing of the buttons, some part of you is suffering. Some part of you always is. Because that need to push the button is itself something that needs to be healed. It just is. And the wonderful thing about unity principles is that if you're living those principles, eventually you eradicate the buttons. That you become acquainted with what Glenna was reading about this part of you that is a mirror of the divine, of God, and that you are this magnificent being who has no buttons, who needs no buttons, and does not have a need to push someone else's. And that frees us to have more love, more freedom, more joy, more peace. And I think that's about as good gets. To have that kind of freedom where there are no buttons to push anymore. So that you're no longer vulnerable and your pain, your scars aren't out there waiting for somebody to push. And sometimes, most times, people are pushing buttons and they're not doing it consciously. But stuff happens and we rub up against each other, we bump up against each other and each other's needs and our pain, our trauma, all of the things that we have inside of us that we have not dealt with, and a button just gets pushed. And it does make us sometimes go off the deep end. It just happens. And there are some that say, yes, that is indeed why we come together. That's why we're in the families we're in, because you want to heal something that needs to be healed. That there was a part of you that wanted to experience that chose that interesting thing, that we chose that before we came into physical manifestation. That we wanted to have this experience with each other, and that we would heal the very thing that hurts when the button gets pushed. And so it takes us having to take a deep breath when the button gets pushed and acknowledge that a button got pushed and acknowledge that there's something there that needs to be healed and that most of the healing is ours, not theirs. Not theirs. They may have something they need to heal, but that's their business, not ours. That's between them and the God of their understanding, or whatever it is they believe in. And they get to heal whatever it is within them that led them to push the button, consciously or unconsciously. But really, the responsibility is ours to heal our own stuff. To eradicate the button, or at least take it off for a while, put the button to the side, and say, how about if I try living without it? What if I didn't have the button? I think sometimes my parents needed to have the buttons because as I watched them, especially in my 30s and 40s, as when you start to see your parents as human beings who have stuff on their own and have lots of stuff because they grew up with their stuff and now you got your own stuff, so you're saying, oh, okay, we're all human here and they all have stuff. So once I started to watch their stuff and watch their marriage from a more objective view and not just, this is mommy and daddy. And you see them, you go, oh, button's getting pushed, button's getting pushed. Okay, there they go again. They do this thing together. I think that they needed that at some point because they were codependent. And it felt better to blame the other person for the unhappiness and the pain than it is for your own healing. It is easier. Oh, well, in a way. Because as long as you're there, you don't heal. As long as it's somebody else's responsibility to change and it's not you, then you don't heal. Because you're waiting for them to do something. You're waiting for them to take a responsibility. And then you don't get free until they free you. I got tired of that. I got really tired of that. Because at some point, I didn't know if they wanted to heal or not. And they might have. Some people want to keep their stuff until they take their last breath. Some of us are still carrying stuff we've had for decades. When the heck are you going to let it go? When are you going to let it go? And look at the other person, the people that push our buttons, and try to love them where they are. Try to love them where they are. They push buttons. And as long as I have a button, they're going to push the button. Maybe. Maybe they'll change. You know, I have hope for all wonderful things. I have previous button pushers that are no longer button pushers because they've healed and I've healed. But I took the button off first and threw it away and said, I'm done with this. You don't get to push a button ever again here. You just don't. A lot of times it was out, most of the times in the early years of my 20s and 30s, it was out of defiance. I'm sick and tired of you pushing my buttons. I'm getting rid of this. And then you can still be in relationship with people. You don't always have to go away. There's a lot of that now, especially, where we just want to get away from those that push our buttons, from the things that push our buttons. So we don't want to hear we're doing this like the three monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Well, we're still speaking the evil, but we haven't learned how to shut this off yet, a lot of us. And I only say that because I learned how to shut my own. But we have to heal that. And we got to want to heal it. We got to be willing to lay it down and say, I'm tired of that. Whether it's again, if defiance is how you do it in the beginning, do that. And if that works, do that. Do what works. But if later on you can just do it out of peace, because you want peace for them and peace for you, and you can just gently take the button and place it down somewhere else or throw it away, or you are so dedicated and committed to working on stepping fully in your divinity that one day you're in the company of that person and you say, oh, I don't have that button anymore. What happened? When did that happen? When did that happen? And there's no button. And you can honestly look back and say, a year ago, that would have sent me into the stratosphere with anger. I have a lot of those moments now where something happens or somebody happens, and I go, oh, that's nice. That's nice. Somewhere along the way, I healed that. At some point, there was something within me that I was dragging forward that I either let go of or it just went because I was working on me. I was working on my relationship with God. I was seeing my divinity, affirming my divinity in times when it was difficult to do it. And then as you do it, you have that skill, all of a sudden, you go, oh, that's not a burden anymore. And it's just gone. It's gone. And you smile to yourself and you say, stuff works if you work it. Works if you work it, right? How many times have we heard that? You go, oh, God. They're saying that again. It does. It works if you work it. That's why unity has always called itself practical Christianity, because you got to work it. You got to practice it. You got to do it. You got to do the thing. You just don't walk around saying, oh, I just love God, God loves me, and I'm a child of God. Oh, my God, that's wonderful. And then you go out in the world, and all you do is get your buttons pushed. Oh, my God, I love God, until you don't. Why didn't God fix them? Or make them go away. And going away doesn't fix it. sometimes we just want it to go away, but it doesn't go away. It goes away temporarily, but it shows up looking like somebody else. A different husband or wife, different partner, different person you're dating, a different coworker, a different boss, different church member. Ah. Right. Getting close is what I do. They just show up later on looking like somebody else. Second husband, third husband, fourth wife, fifth wife. All of a sudden, your coworker reminds you of your brother or your sister. Go to the grocery store, you think you had an encounter with your dad. It just shows up looking like somebody else because you still have the stuff to heal. So the stuff will come back again and again and again. So you might think you ran, but you can't run forever or far enough. Because the nature of life is cyclical, and it'll show back up so you can heal it, or you got to heal it at a different level than you healed it 5 years ago. I hate when that happens. Because we've all been there where we say, I worked on that. I know I did. And I do feel better at one level, but now you got to deal with it on another level. And it keeps showing up till we heal it. So the buttons keep going there. You think you lost a button, and then you go, oh, crap, back again, another button. Or this time it's on your lower back. It's not up here. It's not up front where people can find it easily, but it's still there. And just when you think it's safe to go back in the water, there's that Jaws music. Some little critter runs behind you and pushes that button that you think you had hidden. Or you placed it somewhere where they can't find it, but they find it, because that's the nature of life. That's the nature of growing, that we're always being called forward into our divinity. So the buttons are there. And what are you willing to heal? And are you willing to heal it? Or is it just simpler to blame it on the other guy? You know, if it is, do that till you're tired or not. My poor mother, bless her heart, was still blaming my dad for stuff, and he had been dead for years. I said, Mom, really? When are you going to give this up? Your father. And I was like, oh my God, Mom. He's dust. He's not here. She wanted it. Okay. I still love you. Whatever you want to do. You can keep it if you want, if it makes you feel better, if it makes life easier. You know, I don't know. But as long as we do, you are chained to the pain and to the person. I got tired of being yanked. Really got tired of being yanked sometimes. And sometimes a yanking is hard, isn't it? You know, when you get our buttons pushed, it's not always just a, little push or a nudge. Sometimes it really, really hurts. I was just at an event yesterday with a woman who's took care of her mother. She has one sibling, a brother. Took care of their mother for years. Lived with her, cared for her. Her mother was sick for decades. Lived in her mother's house with her. Gave up her life and lived with her mother. And her brother just put her out of the house, the family house, and she's got to find somewhere to live. He never helped. Never helped. Her button is so big, I can't find her behind it. That's how big that button is. And every single time she thinks about needing to find a place to live, that anger, you can see the anger rising up in her face. Like the color changes in her physically. And I can understand. Because, man, you talk about some pain there. That you, here I sacrificed my life, a labor of love, yes, for sure. And the person who was unwilling to help is now going to put me out of the house? Yeah, I'd be thinking about, that's beyond 0 to 60 right there. So I understood her anger and her sadness and the pain that must cause to be there. And that's a whole lot to heal right there. But if she truly wants to be free, and probably if she truly wants to find a place where she'll be happy, that she can live and settle in now, she's probably going to have to let some of that go. Because we're in anger and desperation, no good things happen. No good things happen. Stuff will happen, but it's usually not good. And it usually doesn't bring us to peace, usually. It's not a place where you want to live. Those are the kind of buttons that people keep for decades. Because they're not speaking right now. They're not talking. She just needs to get out. She's got about 60 days to get out. That's the kind of pain a lot of us are carrying around. But still, are we willing to be free of it? Are we willing to forgive? Are we willing to have compassion? Are we willing to love people where they are or accept them? If you can't love them, can you accept them where they are? So you can be free. So there's no more button, or at least a smaller button. Because 0 to 10 is better than 0 to 60. It is. 0 to 10 is better than 0 to 60. So can we find it in ourselves, a willingness to heal ourselves so that we no longer have that kind of pain? And I think it does stem from who we think we are and how powerful we think we are and how vulnerable we are to the world. How vulnerable do you want to be? Because there's vulnerability to be out there and be open to love and all that life has to offer. And sometimes we do get hurt. But sometimes our vulnerability is masked with desperation. And not feeling worthy. And thinking that the pain is necessary. Or all that's going to happen for us. So it's so important to know your God. Who is your God? And probably if your God is angry and vengeful, probably you have a lot of anger and vengeance in your heart. If your God is one that punishes, then probably you have a need to punish. Because if we have an intimate relationship with that God, then generally that's our mirror. And that becomes what love is in the world for us. So when I got a different version of God, a fully loving, giving God that only wanted my good, always, my peace, always, then I started to find that within myself. And it was so much easier. I had no need for buttons. I just took them off. I said, I'm gonna have peace, and I just need to find out how to have it. But I have to have it first. I have to unlock the chains. I have to do the healing. And then that person, that situation, either dwindles, disappears, goes away, and you're free of it. And you do start to have those moments where you think, I healed some stuff. Got far less baggage than I have. Those buttons that got pushed with the slightest breeze are not there anymore. It takes a whole lot more to hit them and to get a reaction from you. It really does depend on us. Because the stuff can be there, but we don't have to be vulnerable to it. It doesn't have to affect us. The pain can be there. The people that rub us the wrong way can be there, but they don't have to affect us. But in order for that to happen, you got to know who and what you are. And you have to be willing to step into that and to live from that place. That's why we do a centering song, so we can get back to that feeling, the feeling that reminds us who we truly are. Loving Spirit dwells in me. This is my divinity. As within, so without. You got crap out there, that means you got crap in here. Heal it. Let it go. Let it go. Where there's error, let me love. May I have no fear. Where there's error, let me love. Yeah, it is. It's a hard road to hoe. It is. Where there's error, let me love. If you just have that one line, when it comes up and you think there's error and you say, well, let me love in this situation. What would love do now, here, now? Do I just let the button get hit and react? Or can I come from love here? Love for myself and love for whoever's there. And love just might look like acceptance. And that's huge for a lot of us who are used to having our buttons pushed and used to running away or used to fighting whatever it is that's before us. When you are steeped in your divinity, there is no fight. You don't even know there's a battle to be won because there isn't one. There's just another opportunity to love. Very simply. Just another opportunity to love. So let's take this into meditation. So how many opportunities to love have you had this week? Who is it that's in your life, in your sphere of influence? That pushes your buttons. What's the situations that you're grappling with? That just turn you red. That make you want to scream. That make you want to lash out. That make you say and do things you wouldn't normally say or do. We all have them. We're all healing from something. We all have buttons. What are you willing to free yourself of? Are you willing to free yourself? Are you willing to stop running? Are you willing to stop having the same type of relationship, the same type of encounter? Are you willing to show up differently? Are you willing to show up in your divinity? Are you willing to bring love to error? Are you willing to expand into a new version of you, the best version of yourself? Which is you expressing God in all situations, with all people. Can you respond rather than react? Can you take a deep breath and view a moment as an opportunity to grow and to have greater freedom, greater love? Can we simply stop blaming the other person? Can we love ourselves and others exactly as we are? And as we do with our spiritual family, see the divinity, affirm the divinity of each person that we come into contact with, regardless of the type of encounter we have. How much love are you willing to have and experience? So I invite you to pick just one button that you know you got. Just one button. That you want to heal. And if you don't know, don't have a clue as to what to do about it, ask in your heart of hearts. Ask the God of your understanding, how do I heal this now? Heal me. I want the freedom and peace that was promised. So we say yes and thank you for opportunities to heal, for opportunities to grow in love, for opportunities to step more fully into a greater freedom. Greater freedom. So we say yes and thank you for life and love. We give thanks for the ability to choose, to have free will. At any moment, we can have more love, more freedom, more compassion, more joy, more health, more wealth. We just have to say yes. Indicate to the universe that we are ready. And say thank you in advance of the manifestation. Knowing that in pure potentiality, that as soon as we pray something and give thanks for it, it is done. It is done. So it is, and so it shall be.